Hi folks, I want to show you my cook system. It's a little bit different than I think what most people use. And right now I've got a Coleman dual fuel 533 single burner stove going. It takes liquid fuel. And you can put a number of different things in here, I understand, but I've never used anything except white gas, the Coleman fuel. The stove doesn't matter. I've got another one here. This is a Whisper light. It uses a fuel the same. And I've also got this little thing here. And this is a smoky. And it uses butane. And I can put it on here, put this little can on there, and I've got stove. I've got heat for my cooking system. The butane is handy because you can get a good fire out of it and it's not messy. I primarily use it for cooking my coffee. Sometimes I'll light it when I'm in my truck because, like I said, it's not messy. These liquid fuel stoves, like that Whisper light and this Coleman dual fuel, it's a 533. These things are, when I bought mine it was about $35. That shows you how long ago it was. They don't make them anymore. You can still buy them on eBay, maybe some other places, but they're over $100 now. But I think they're worth the price. But this right here, this is very central. This is a horseshoe trivet. And it's got 3 bolts on it. I bought that from Cowboy Kent Rollins. I don't know if he still sells them. He sends them with a little bolt. And you can get a bigger bolt if you want. He'll give you the bigger bolt too. That'll lift your trivet up off the fire a little bit. I got different bolts because I wanted it a little higher so I could put the stoves under it. Now, I've shown you 3 different stoves. All 3 stoves will work with this. You can also use charcoal or wood fire. Whatever kind of fire you can come up with, you can cook with it if you've got a trivet. And the reason I use a trivet is because, like this little stove here, this little Snow Peak thing, there's no way I'd put this big heavy cast iron 2-quart Dutch oven on there. It's just too heavy. It's going to be a bit heavy for this, although I could do it. But I choose not to. Why stress this nice stove out when you don't need to? Now this little Coleman, it will handle this size pot. But I prefer putting it on the trivet. And that way I know I'm not going to damage the stove. And if you've got the trivet, all you need is a fire. Any kind of stove you can come up with that'll fit under there, any kind of heat source, you can use it. The other side of this cooking system, besides the trivet, is the cast iron. Now, I'm cooking for 1 person, although you can cook for 2 with these. Traffic. If you can go out into the wilderness, fine, but the last time I was in the wilderness was quite some time ago. I camp where I can and where they will allow me to. But anyway, so I've got some traffic at this location. This right here is a Lodge 2-quart Dutch oven. Now, sometimes I take it, and then sometimes I take this little Lodge 8-inch cast iron. The lids are interchangeable. I'm not going to be cooking with this one today. If you get this one, there are two kinds of Lodge Dutch ovens. One has legs on it, and it has a lid with this rim, and one does not have legs, and it's just got kind of a rounded top. And the rounded top, this is a lid. It fits the skillet, but it fits the home type Dutch oven as well. With this kind of Dutch oven, if I were cooking with fire, with wood or charcoal, I could add fire up here. And with this Dutch oven, there's not really anything you can't cook. I don't know what it would be. I avoid acidy foods like tomato pasta, pasta sauce, because the acid tends to take the seasoning off of it. But you can set the lid down on this trivet, and you've got a nice little griddle right here. It's dish, but that just means the stuff's not going to fall off. It's not going to run off, rather. You can fry eggs, you can fry a couple of slices of bacon, make yourself French toast. You wouldn't fry chicken, or, well, you wouldn't do breaded fried chicken. You could griddle cook some chicken tenders. That would work very well. You can also bake with this. You can bake a loaf of bread in here. I have a trivet. Now, I had to modify this trivet because it had these little bumps on the side. See the trivet? I ground those off, but after I ground them off, it will fit down in here. What that lets you do is it's got these little bumps here which hold it just a little bit off the bottom. That means the fire doesn't contact what you put on top of your fire is hitting the bottom of this Dutch oven, and it'll work on this too. See, that lifts that up. That puts the top of this up a ½ an inch or so. You could use this, you could put water in here and put the lid on it with this trivet and put something on top of it and have the water level below that. You could steam cook something. Baking, any kind of baking, you have this trivet on here and it won't burn on the bottom because the trivet picks it up off so your food isn't contacting the hot bottom of the skillet. Heat a pizza. Although with a pizza you might want it down directly on the metal, because if it's down directly on the metal, then you get that heat and you get a nice little crisp crust. But anything you want to bake, you bake a cookie, bake a brownie, I don't know, what do you want to bake? This Dutch oven will give you more height than this skillet, but both work quite well, and you can bake with either. With this Dutch oven, it's deep enough. If you wanted to put an inch or so of oil in there, you could slice up the potato and have yourself some French fries. When's the last time you made a decent French fry with any kind of ultralight stove? And forget that titanium. Titanium sucks when it comes to cooking anything. I've got some. I've got 2 titanium pots, those toque or whatever they are. I've got those. And they're okay for boiling water. And if I was going to use my little bitty butane stove, that would be fine. I could set the pot right on top of it and be okay. I carry that with me, just in case I need some quick boiled water. But for real cooking, cast iron is so much better than the titanium. I'm browning some hamburger now, and it takes a little while for that cast iron to get hot. And so you're going to go through more fuel than you would if you're just using one of these stoves and ultralight kind of things. With truck camping, you don't need ultralight. There's no reason for it. If you've got it, fine. But unless you're trying to take a whole bunch of stuff, you don't really need it. You know, I've got about every kind of spice you can imagine over in my spice rack. And I can cook lots of stuff. But I don't cook it with that titanium. With the titanium stuff, you boil water to pour in the bag of your freeze-dried meals. With this kind of system, you can cook like you're at home. I just can't say enough about it. Having different stoves, there is one stove I think I might like, but I doubt I'll buy it. And it's that butane kind that the stove and the pot are one integrated kind of thing. I guess you can take the stove off of the pot, but jet boil. Those jet boil things, those would be nice if you were going to go and just take freeze-dried food, because I don't think you can get any faster boiled water than one of those. But I'm not in that big of a hurry. I want my coffee in the morning, but I use that Bialetti Moka Express, so I don't even boil water for coffee. I've got the coffee pot to do that. You can bake a cake in one of these. You can make your desserts. You could deep fry chicken if you wanted to. There's not much you can't cook with it, if you know how to cook. Now, you gotta know how to cook, of course. Oh, what else can I show you here? Now, like I said, I'm browning hamburger, and it's going to be a little while. It's cooking. I don't know if you can see the steam, because it's kind of a little cool out here. But I'm going to brown my hamburger up, and I'm going to make a taco. That's my intention. But I use these things, you know, you can cook a very nice roast in one of these, although if it's just one person cooking a roast isn't too much of a priority, I don't suppose. You can fry a steak on that. Now, what you can't do, you can't really barbecue with or grill, as in like grilling a burger over an open fire. There are ways of doing that. You could have your open fire here instead of the stove, but you wouldn't want to put a hamburger on a grill on top of this, because you get grease everywhere, you know, on your stove. That would be silly. But as long as you're not open fire cooking and wanting the flames to hit your food, as long as you're going to be cooking in a pan of some sort, it's a nice way to go. It really is. It's my first choice. And not everybody cooks with cast iron, even if I do. I cook it almost exclusively with cast iron. You can boil water here. Whatever you want. Whatever you want to cook with it, you can. You might have to modify your recipe a little bit, but probably not much. Make a curry. Fry some ham. You could make a hot sandwich. Make some. Get a small piece of venison and cook it kind of slow. Make some gravy. You can bake potatoes in these very easily. Just whatever. And take whatever stove you want. Like I said, this Coleman dual fuel I think is probably my favorite for cooking. I sometimes cook with this at home, I've got 2 of these. I've got one out on my back deck, and if I've got something I'm going to have a lot of oil going up into the air, like if I'm frying bacon or something, I'll cook it on this outside, and that way I don't have that in my kitchen. Out here that doesn't really matter. You need a fuel bottle if you're going to do one of these things, but then you can buy the fuel by the gallon. And I think this thing may even take gasoline. I think that whisper light does. I've never used it. I always use the clean stuff because the dirty stuff makes everything dirty, and the clean stuff doesn't. Not nearly as much anyway. One thing about these fuel stoves is when they first start, you get a little bit of fuel going in before it. This thing right here, this little cup right here will fill up with some fuel, and you want to turn it off and get it lit. And once it starts burning, then you can start kind of turning it on again. But if you don't, you can overfill this thing and you can drop flaming fuel down below you. So you don't use this indoors. You use this someplace where you don't have any kind of fire hazard whatsoever. This one here is not quite as bad as that. This one, you don't want to do it indoors for sure, or around anything flammable. This little bitty one, this little butane stove, it doesn't drip. Now, it may shoot flames up pretty high, but they don't come down. It's a gas, an aerosol kind of thing, or I don't know what you call it, but it's safer from that point of view. It's more expensive to run. That's why I use this one typically for cooking, because it takes longer to cook. You can boil water and put it in one of those bags and you can be done with it in, what, 10 minutes? 15 minutes at the outside to let it sit there and soak. This is going to take a while. You're seeing I'm still browning my hamburger. See if that's getting hot. No, that's not hot yet. You want to carry a proper pot holder or a hot, the thing you put on there, I don't know what you call it. Pot holder, isn't that what you call it? I don't know. Anyway, this is my cooking system. It takes a little bit more room, takes a little more time, but you're cooking with cast iron, and you can't beat that. It's a much better way of cooking than trying to fry anything on that stupid titanium. I've done some meals on titanium and they came out okay, but it's just not a pleasant cooking experience, because with titanium it gets hot so fast that you put the skillet on there, light it, and you're burning something almost instantly. Cast iron is slow and gentle, and you can burn your food with it. Of course you can. But it's going to take its time, and you've got plenty of time to work with it. And make something good to eat instead of just putting boiling water on